All right. Hey. We got something new going on here, and I'm excited about it. Welcome to this week's live stream. Don't have a name for it yet. Working on that, but we're doing some things over here. So this month, this is the month of March, and we are talking about monetizing. We're talking about monetizing your personal brand. What does that mean? What does that look like? How can it happen? All the things you've heard me, if you've been following me for the last probably 10 years, I've been talking about it. I've been talking about having a personal brand. I've been talking about having an iconic personal brand. I've been talking about having a personal brand that can position you and help you create wealth. I've been talking about the rich icon. I've been talking about all the things having to do with using your personal brand as a way to generate wealth. And we're going to get into it today. Just give me a second because I want to share this on my personal page and get it going over here. There we go. Got it going over there. Let's see. Let me pull up the comments because I don't have the comment screen up. Welcome if you're watching live. Welcome if you're watching the replay. Welcome if you are new to this community. Welcome. I am thrilled and delighted to have you because what, guys? We survived what? We survived Medigate. I call it Medigate. We survived Medigate, and we are here to talk about it. We are here to tell people about it. And hold on, I am getting this so people can find it easily at the top of my. There we go. We're good. All right. So we are here. We survived Medigate. We survived getting through the anxiety of not being able to get on to the social media platforms. But as you know, and I say all the time, you have to have more than one way to be able to connect with your people. You have to have more than one way to be able to engage and interact with your community. I tell people all the time that social media platform forms are just traffic sources, but you got to send that traffic somewhere. And this is a great time to be talking about this because when you're talking about monetizing your personal brand, these social media platforms are part of they're part of how you get that traffic going to what you're selling. But here's the thing. Why are people even going to come to what you're doing on social media? Why are people even going to gather and watch a live stream, read your post, be a part of your group, whatever it is, read your LinkedIn newsletter, whatever it is? Why? So we're going to talk about that today, framed around the idea. And I was thinking about, I got a little bit of creative mind, and I was thinking about what I wanted to call this particular part of the series, and I called it I've Got a Story to Tell. So there are a couple of reasons why I wanted to call it this. One reason is because I love telling stories. I am a storyteller through and through. I think I got it from my mama. Uh, my mom is an amazing storyteller, like literally. She tells stories whenever we've had family gatherings. I grew up, I was adopted, so I grew up away from my mom. But when I became an adult, we built a relationship and I would go there for Thanksgiving and things like that. And she would host these amazing Thanksgiving gatherings. And my brothers, my two younger brothers, they were in college, high school, they had lots of friends, and they would all come to my mom's house for Thanksgiving, literally. And my mom would start telling stories. And before you knew it, they were sitting around, and these are like high schoolers, college students. They're all sitting around my mom like they're at the library listening to the librarian read. But she's telling these stories about her life and her experiences and all these things, and they are loving it. They're loving it, and it fascinated me. So I eventually became a lot like my mom. I love to tell stories. Didn't I just tell a story? I love telling stories. And there are reasons why. And it's not really, it's not just about, oh, use stories to make money. It's not just about that. I was telling stories long time before I started doing this. But here's what prompted me to kind of dig in this a little bit more. And I'm going to share something with you because I said I was going to talk about it. I said I was going to talk about it, and we're going to use this to frame the conversation. Okay. And we're going to use this to frame the conversation. So here we go. Here we go. Our girl, Risa Tisa. If you are not familiar with Risa Tisa did a 50 plus part series on TikTok. It's just a little backstory if you're not familiar with Risa Tisa and what happened. And you see, she's the creator of this series that captivated millions. Oh, no, no, no. My Siri is acting up. Nobody's talking to you. Um, Captivated um millions, literally captivated millions of people. And she used one thing, she used, and she used it in a way that created this result. Now, if you don't know anything about CAA is one of the top, I said top four. I'm going to say top three. It's probably top three. It's up there with the William Morris Agency, and I think there's one other, United Artists. I think it's a pretty big deal to be signed by this agency. So the question becomes, how did a woman sitting in her car for most of the time, I didn't watch the whole series, so I can't say, I did watch bits and pieces of it. My husband and I watched the first 10, and then we were like, okay, this is a lot, right? But for the most part, sitting in her car with over 500 minutes of content. How did a woman sitting in her car, 500 minutes of content, wind up signed by one of the top agencies in Hollywood? How? How did that happen? Like, are you serious? How did she wind up on Tamron Hall, Good Morning America, and wherever else, she's been to share this story? How did that happen? I'm going to tell you how. I'm going to tell you how. But just hold on a minute. Here she is. My girl got that. I don't know where she got the photo from, but she got the photo up here looking how, giving her Hollywood glam. CAA, she signed. And listen, part one part one, it's the first one, 39 million views. Part one, 39 million views. She's a graduate from Kennesaw State University. She has a bachelor's in criminal justice. She works in law enforcement in Atlanta. But she was sitting in her car telling a story. for 500 minutes, and it landed her signed with one of the top agencies in Hollywood. And you might be thinking, all right, Cheryl, what's the big deal about that? What's the big deal about her, being signed, to a Hollywood agency? We don't care about Hollywood. Okay, I get it. I get it. I get it. But in a situation like this, you're going to have so many people coming at you, trying to offer you things, trying to sign you for stuff, trying to get a book deal, trying to get a movie deal, trying to get all these things. You have to have someone there that is one that has your interest, that they're solely there for you to protect your interest. So you have to have somebody that's at the table to protect your interests. You have to have somebody on your team that can go look at the contracts. I've done some of this work, not a whole lot, but I've done some of this work. I've I've done it in Hollywood, right? Listen, y'all, and I never saw that coming. I never saw that coming. I never saw being on a team where you're part of a team and they're shopping movie ideas, they're pitching, they got the attorney has to look at the contracts, they get a deal and they like, we don't want the deal, we don't. I didn't see that coming, so I understand why she had to do this. But the fact that she was able to do it with one of the leading agencies in Hollywood is really fascinating to me. But here's how it happened. One simple thing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Pure, simple storytelling. Pure, simple storytelling. Our girl, Risa Tisa, sat in her car day after day after day telling her story. So that's why I want to call this part one of monetizing your, actually, it's called Iconic Riches and how you monetize your personal brand. The reason I wanted to call this I've got a story to tell is because I was so inspired by one, I was inspired by her bravery of sharing her story on social media where people can drag you, people can do all kinds of things, and she was not deterred at all. She kept going. Whatever her mission was, her purpose was, she kept it in front of her and she kept going. And we're going to talk about that in a second. So she used the power of storytelling, period. There was nothing fancy. It was no fancy equipment. There was no stage. There was nothing but her sitting in her car, telling her story, talking to her phone. Now, mind you, she's not going live. She's creating video. So she's just telling a story. She's a masterful storyteller. You have to be if you can get 39 million people to watch one video. And it's just you sitting in your car talking. She's a masterful storyteller. Storytelling is very powerful when it comes to selling. Storytelling is very powerful. It's a very powerful strategy for selling. Here's why. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. And then we're going, and listen, guys, you can ask questions. You can put questions in the comments. You can send me questions. Let me know you're here. Tell me how I can support you. I'm showing up here every Wednesday. Talk to me. Okay. All right. So here, storytelling equals selling. Storytelling equals selling. And here's why. The first thing you want to know about storytelling, especially remember, we're framing this from a standpoint of selling, the standpoint of monetizing, right? The first thing you want to do is you want to captivate hearts. You want to captivate hearts. You want to make that connection. You want people to lean in and go, wait, what? Get out of here, girl. What? Tell me more. Because that's really what they're, tell me more. Oh, wow. And the more you tell, the more connected the listener becomes. We saw it play out with her telling her story. The more she told the story, the more engaged, the more invested people became because they wanted to hear what was they wanted to hear the story. They wanted to hear the outcome. They wanted to hear all the juicy yummy details. That creates emotional connection. So you want to create that emotional connection. You want to capture their hearts when you're telling story. Now, nobody's saying that you have to be, that you have to be dramatic and all because she wasn't. She wasn't. And that takes us to my second point. You have to be when you're doing storytelling, you have to understand when you're doing storytelling for selling, you have to understand that authenticity sells trust. Authenticity sells trust. Now, like I said, when she's telling her story, yes, she's creating this emotional connection. People are invested in watching it, and just going to a video after video. I mean, it's 50 parts long, and people are watching and watching and watching. She's not telling her story in a dramatic fashion. She's just telling her story, which the way she told it was very authentic to her. She just sat in her car and she just talked. Now, some of us, we are dramatic. We have dramatic pause. We understand the power of certain things when we're telling stories. But what was authentic to her was just to tell the story. What was authentic to her was just to make emphasis on certain things and to also say, yeah, I know. What was I thinking? So not only did she have authenticity, she had a huge level of vulnerability. Yeah, visibility too, but vulnerability. She was being vulnerable. You telling your story like that to millions and millions of people, and you don't do it once. You don't do it twice. You don't do it 5 times. You don't do it 10 times. You don't do it 20 times. You don't stop at 30. You go all the way. You go all the way. The vulnerability that she displayed and she opened herself up for. These are the elements of storytelling that sells. She gave us a master class in storytelling. She gave us a master class. She gave us a master class in storytelling. She did. If you watch a few parts for no other reason than to just watch the masterful way she tells the story. And she tells this story in such a way that she gets the eyes and ears of people that can position her to make money just from telling her story. When it comes to what I do, I mean, one of the components of what I do is help you craft your story. Now, it might not be a Risa Tisa story, but it would be your story. It would be your opportunity to create emotional connection. It would be your opportunity to be vulnerable, to be authentic. That would be your opportunity to share your story in a way that people connect with it, that it resonates, and that you can tell this story of how I started here, but I wound up here. And because now that I'm here, I want to help you, because that was the core of what she did. She basically said, I'm willing to be vulnerable and to sit before you and tell you this entire story so that maybe one person somewhere in the world doesn't have to experience what I experienced. The third thing that's a part of this idea of storytelling um, equals selling. The third thing she did was she was consistent. She was consistent. You're like, Cheryl, okay, what do you mean she was consistent? She took the same story. She took one story and just broke it up, spread it out. She told the same story. And I think every few videos she would do a recap to bring you up to date, just in case you hadn't watched any others. When I say brilliant storytelling, she did a recap to bring you up to date. So if you hadn't watched the other ones, the previous videos, you were caught up and you could keep going if you wanted to. That's a consistent thread of the entire story. It's a consistent thread. So for you, the consistency is consistency in telling your story. Now, when it comes to personal brand, listen to me here, okay? When it comes to personal brand, consistency um is multiple parts. It's a visual story, it's a verbal story, it's what people experience. So it's visual, it's verbal, it's experiential, and it all comes together to make this thing to make it consistent. Now when you think about the way in terms of consistency in her storytelling, she had a very short window. So her consistency played out by keeping the thread of the story consistent. Consistency is important. It's required because it's a part of the building of trust. We said authenticity, vulnerability sells trust. Consistency does the same. People are looking for it. They are literally watching to see if you're going to be consistent. They're literally watching to see if what you say, how you show up, how you function, how you interact, if it's all the same. So people have different ways of measuring consistency, and you have to be very aware of that. You have to be aware of what people are looking for when they're seeing, okay, is she saying the same thing here that she's saying in her? And I don't mean like the same words all the time. I mean, is her character consistent? Is her what she's saying, is who she's saying she is it consistent? I'm going to give you an example. So of course it comes with a story. So for a long time on social media, I used to like publicly watch, if you will, award shows, the Oscars, the Grammys, the VMAs. I used to watch and I would post while I was watching. And my natural or my native nature for a very long time was to be very sarcastic. That came as a result. That was a protective measure. Sarcasm was a protective measure for me. The best way for me to protect myself from people was to be sarcastic. I did it for decades. So as a result of that, whenever I would watch the award shows, Met Gala, any of that, I would have this sarcastic spin on my commentary, if you will. And it became kind of popular. People literally looked for it. Anytime an award show, they looked for my post. They looked for me to say the surly things I would say and all of that. And then I started doing a lot of work on myself and realized that was out of alignment for me. It was out of alignment for me to bash women and how they show up. I had to check myself. It was inconsistent with who I said I was. So, on one hand, I'm talking about empowering women, but on the other hand, I'm tearing women down. That don't go together, y'all. I know people do it. It don't go together. So you might have to check yourself. You might have to do a little work on yourself. I mean, there are tons of people bad mouthing Risa Tisa. Tons of people. I can't bad mouth her for sharing her story and then turn around and tell a woman that you should be able to speak your truth. That's inconsistent. That's when you have to deal with you and your character. That's when you have to go deep and do the work and say, but wait a minute, why am I doing this? I discovered that I was doing the sarcasm as a way to protect myself. But because it became like a part of my thing and my personality, it wasn't no longer just me protecting myself by using it. I was using it, period. And I was using it to demean other women. Let me tell you, when you're serious about building your personal brand, and I'm taught, listen, all that superficial stuff about colors and logos and websites and stuff, I listen, that's only 10% of the thing. Yeah, 90% is strategy, but here's the deal. That strategy is built on something a whole lot more solid. It's built on your character. It's built on your integrity. It's built on who you are, who you were created to be, who God created you to be in the world, how he wants you to function and show up in the world, how he wants you to interact with the people he's called you to serve. That's what your personal brand is built on. It's built on who he called you to be, who he wants you to be. We love chasing the shiny objects of logos and websites and colors and oh, I want to have a photo shoot. Listen. Let me listen. If you listen, you will learn that when it comes to building your brand, it is not to be played with because it is a powerful force that you can use. And getting a photo shoot is not the answer. If you don't have the proper foundation, if you don't have the right strategy in place, if your way of thinking and yourself and your belief about your self-image is all jacked up, those photos aren't going to do nothing but look cute. They're not going to create the results you want them to create. Listen, y'all, I love a good photo shoot. Ain't a camera I've ever met that I don't love. But I go into it understanding the work that I have to make sure I do on the inside so that the photos, the images actually truly reflect the truth of who I am. And now I know how to use them. I know how to position them. I know how to stop rolling out all your photos at one time on social media so everybody can see them. You don't leave nothing to mystery, to mystique, to strategy, to nothing. It's like, I did a photo shoot and here, guys, look at me. Look at all the photos. No, be strategic, y'all. Be strategic. Okay. I didn't mean to get onto that, but I did. Because your images also tell a story. We're talking about storytelling. Most of us are only thinking about the words that come out of our mouths. A story is being told visually, verbally, experientially in person. When you create an experience, what story are you telling? When you do your social media posts, what story are you telling? When you create graphics and imagery and websites and all of those things, what story are you telling? If you're not clear on the story, if you don't know how to create emotional connection, if you're not being authentic, so you're not building trust, if you don't have the capacity to be vulnerable, and if you're inconsistent, your story is jacked up and nobody gets it. So what do? They move along. They move along. Why? There's no emotional connection being made. There's no authenticity that's building trust. There's no consistency that's building trust. Listen, I'm going to tell you, consistency has been my nemesis. It's been my nemesis. It's like, I know what to do. But because of the way I'm a little wired, that doing the same thing all the time, well, oh, okay, I got to do what now? But that takes discipline. And that's where discipline comes into play. So what are we saying? What are we talking about? We're saying storytelling equals selling. How do you generate income? How do you position yourselves to be able to charge a certain amount of money and get paid for it? Emotional connection, being authentic, being vulnerable. Some people call it being transparent. People tell me a lot of times, they're like, Cheryl, you're so transparent. And being consistent. That's just a tip of the storytelling iceberg. I think next month, I think I'm gonna do a whole series on storytelling because I absolutely love to teach on storytelling. I think I'm gonna do a series on storytelling. But if you join the 3-day, we're doing a 3-day bankable brand challenge this month in a couple weeks. Let me know in the comments. Just say me, and I'll send you a link for it. We're doing that, and during that, we're going to touch on this idea of storytelling and having you begin to build out your story, because you have to get clear about the story you want to tell. You're never going to create a connection. You're never going to have a community that you are emotionally connected to. You're never going to build the type of trust that you want to build that's going to have people pulling out their credit cards and saying, I want what you have. Because I'm connected, because what you said resonated, and because you're so authentic that I really trust what you're saying, and I've been listening and watching you say this for a very long time. So I spoke to someone a couple weeks ago, and she said, Cheryl, I've been watching you for years, and this never fails. And it's always the people that wind up working with me privately. This never fails. They've been watching me for a long time. Every now and then I get a client that has seen the result of the work that I've done with someone else, and they go, okay, I want that. How do I work with you? Most times it's people that have been watching me for quite some time. That's why I don't get upset or I don't get mad or anything when people may not work with me at a time when they originally said they would. Because you never know. You never know. People will come They'll be like, "Yep, I had one client last year. We worked together for a whole year, and it was before the pandemic that she said she wanted to work with me, but it didn't work out." And it was like, okay. And then when she was ready, she came right to me because you got to be consistent. You got to keep showing up. Tell your story. Have a strategy about being, how are you being visible? How are you being, how are you telling your story? What voice are you using? Are you really being authentic? Are you really being yourself? Because what did I say? Storytelling equals selling. Storytelling equals selling. And we're not just talking about the story you tell out of your mouth. We're talking about all the components that make up telling the story: verbal, visual, all the things. And I'm gonna say this last thing, and then I'm gonna check the comments. Let's talk about Miss Beyonce for just hot second. So usually lately I've been doing a segment called branding breakdowns and bombshells. Okay, so just consider this, just consider this part of the branding breakdown and bombshell segment, because actually I use the Risa Tisa story. That's really the branding breakdown and bombshell. But I want to talk just a little bit about Beyonce from a storytelling standpoint, because I want you to really see how it works. If you were paying attention, I want you to see how it works. Good morning, Stacy. Hello, Regina. Beautiful. Hello, Desea. Good to see you. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you for watching live. I appreciate you so much, and I love that you're here. So I'm going to say this a little bit about Beyonce, and then either you can ask me some questions or we can wrap it up for today. So, storytelling. If you go back, like back, people think it just started with, I think, the Grammys, but it started before then. Beyonce took us the long road to tell us that her next music drop was going to be country. I can go all the way back to the Adidas photo shoot that she did for Ivy Park. She did an Ivy Park photo shoot that was all about the rodeo. I call that a visual cue. From there on, if you paid attention, she was telling us the story of basically how this music that was soon to come. When it comes to music drops, I think she's the best in the game when it comes to music drops. But she told this visual story. She gave us these visual cues all the way back to the rodeo photo shoot she did for Ivy Park. Not sure what happened in between there because I probably wasn't paying attention. But then, boom, she shows up at the Grammys. What? In a Stetson. Yeah, I looked it up. It's a Stetson, right? And then she does a commercial, the Super Bowl commercial, and then boom, drops the music, and it's country. Visual storytelling. Visual storytelling. And if you watch people that are very good at brand strategy, are they drop visual cues along the way, and they start to prepare you. Who else is a master at it? Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is a master at it. If you watched, and I mentioned this before, if you watched her, you might not have. I just look at things like this. From the time they started talking about color purple, matter of fact, they hadn't even started talking about color purple yet, really. She started wearing what? The color purple. She wore the color purple for, I think the first time she wore the color was, in connection with the movie. I think the first time she wore it was April 2023. So from April, which is the fourth month, to December, which is the 12th month, every time you saw Oprah Winfrey, she had on a shade of what? The color purple. That that visual cue, every time you saw it, every time you saw it, what came to mind? The color purple. Every time you saw it, it was her way of telling that story that the movie is coming, the movie is coming. And she wanted to keep it at the forefront of people's mind. Now, the movie didn't do that great in terms of box office, but she still did what she knew to do in terms of those visual cues. Every award show, what has she worn? The color purple, still keeping it on the minds of people. That, my friends, is the psychology of color. That's a whole nother segment. But for today's purpose, it is part of telling a story. All right, so that's what we had. Part one. Part one of Iconic Riches is all about, building a brand that generates wealth, because it's doable, it's possible. You just have to have the proper foundation, the right strategy, and the right systems, and the right team in place. It is possible. I have had clients to go on, we've built their foundation, and I have had clients go on to make double what they made the year before. I've had clients go on to make, what happened here? Oh, I think my internet is probably, connection is probably a little goofy. Let me know if y'all can still see me. Just let me know in the comments if I'm still rocking with y'all. Yes, Lorraine, I can't believe you caught me live either. Yay! Glad you're here. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. I'm about to wrap up, but I'm so glad that you are here. So I've had clients that go on that have done tremendously, literally built wealth as a result of building the proper first personal brand from the ground up. From the ground up. Okay, and that's because I don't shortcut. I don't just come in talking about colors and all that. We don't even get to that until much later down the road, because I it's my responsibility to make sure that you have the right foundation so that you can scale, so that you can soar, so that you can create wealth for generations to come, if that's what you desire to do. So, if you want to even have a conversation with me about what it would look like to work with me, just comment below, and say yes, or wait, people saying yes because they heard me, they could still see me, but just let me know, in the comment, or just feel free to shoot me a DM. I would love to chat with you, just to explore, to see what the possibilities are. And with that, we're going to check and look at these comments. And thank you for the wave. This is thank you, Regina. It's beautiful to see you here with me, my dear. Excited for you. Good morning, Stacy. Hello, good to see you here. Yes, visual cue. Yes, that's amazing. And Lorraine, I can't believe that you caught me live. Well, I'm here every Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern, but I know some people are at work. I'm thinking about making a little adjustments here for that. And then all the yeses for people that said that they could still hear me and see me. So thank you for watching with me. Thank you for joining. I look forward to our time together. Next week is going to be part 2, Iconic Riches, talking about monetizing your personal brand. And part 2, we're going to talk about rich content. Rich content. Until then, I'll see you next time.